orgasmic enlightenment, where the sexual and spiritual come together. I'm Kim Anami, and I'm a holistic sex and relationship coach and a vaginal weightlifter. In this show, we explore all things intimate. I believe that our sexual energy is life force, creative energy, and we can use it to shape our worlds, strengthen our relationships, and self-actualize. I blend the most avant-garde information from neuroscience, ancient sexual practices like Tantra and Taoism, to renegade wellness modalities to show you how to create gourmet sex in your lives. Come one, come all.
Become unfuckwithable. I always say that one of the hallmarks of becoming a well-fucked woman or a well-fucked man is that you reach the pinnacle stage of not giving a fuck what anyone thinks of you. You have such clarity in your own truth and the confidence to act upon it in your life that you give zero fucks about what anyone thinks about you. You aren't trying not to care, you just don't care. You are so propelled by your own mission and truth in life that the approval or disapproval of underfucked bystanders means nothing to you. In fact, you rarely even notice it. It pings off of you like mosquitoes hitting an electric light. And your light becomes so bright that it burns anyone who comes too close with it with less than good intentions. Over the years, as I have taken a few controversial stands and held my ground publicly on some incendiary topics in the face of thousands, tens of thousands even, rabid, underfucked, foaming at the mouth orcs running at me, screaming and grunting, threatening to kill me. Literally. People ask me how I've handled the negativity and the trolls. Fuck them. Literally, they need to get fucked. And metaphorically, of course. The last few years have been interesting to watch how many people, or rather how few people, have stood up in the face of unpopular opinion and backlash. And the much greater number of people who bent over and took it up the ass in a public gangbang of humiliation, a giant bukkake party where they got jizz squirted into every orifice, and they just lay there handing out bottles of lube to everyone in line. What I noticed about the people who were loyal to their own truth, their integrity, their voice, whatever the cost, is how their lives transformed. They held fast in the face of battalions of underfucked orcs charging at them, and they said, fuck you. This is my story, and I'm sticking with it. This is my truth, and I'm sticking with it. The act of being loyal to my truth and not caving because a bunch of dipshits tried to bully me is more important to my self-worth, my values, and my relationship to all that is right in the world than being intimidated by a gang of dumb fucks. Newsflash, you can only cancel yourself. Some of these people may have gone through a temporary upheaval as their old lives collapsed around them. And now I'm referring to the people who actually have taken a stand. And then a new one began to build, like Phoenix rising from the ashes, elevating them to a higher level of consciousness in themselves and their entire lives. They saw changes they couldn't even have dreamed of, bringing them into a new dimension of reality and abundance. I see these challenges as spiritual tests. The fear of disapproval is an illusion, but I get it. When thousands of snorting, wretched, maggot-ridden, underfucked orcs are drooling bile and coming running at you, it is shocking at first. I will give you that. Like all the forces of hell have been summoned to take a run at you. But then you realize that most of them are simply hired WHO, RES, from the local brothel, and the rest of them are NPCs, non-player characters, just like the orcs in Lord of the Rings, as in they are soulless, moronic, developmentally retarded, low IQ, dipshit, failed evolutionary experiments, bred only for their ability to take orders and follow blindly. Really? You want the respect of these fucktards who can't even think an intelligent thought that hasn't been thoroughly programmed into them? These beings are weak AI bots at best, and weaponized thugs to help enforce agendas. The single best tool I know for attaining that place of unfuckwithability is through regular and thorough fucking of yourself. On your own, with a partner, it all counts. When you give yourself all the fucks, you have no fucks left to give. All of your fucks are directed to the right place, you and your partner. That's it. That is the magic secret. So why is this? Well, your sexual energy is your life force energy. Your sexual energy is the truth and the core of who you are. When you begin inhabiting and wearing that energy, it is like a force field around you that protects you and deflects those not worthy. They ping off of you. It's a shield that makes you impenetrable to all but the most worthy sperm and worthy humans. When you're tapping into it and consciously using it for healing, rejuvenation, and the creation of your life, everything you touch is elevated. From your relationship to your health, to your body and your weight, to your career and your cash flow, to the behavior of your children. You are the epicenter from which everything flows in your life. Well, specifically, your genitals are that epicenter, the eternal fountain of life and youth. The well-fucked all-stars I interview here on the podcast are living testament to show you how the changes you make in your bed and sex life translate into radical shifts in your outer life. In today's all-star interview with Sarah, we talk about how she faced one of the most challenging crossroads there is, leaving a relationship with someone you still love, but you know it's time to go. She had all the very real and socially acceptable excuses of why not to act. And actually, she had more than most people do. And that's another thing about being well fucked and unfuckwithable. It gives you courage.
Well fucked all-stars.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome to the Well Fucked All-Star series.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's hear about your journey in terms of where you started. And I love that you say, because sometimes people say to us, like, do you just get people who are really stuck and, having problems? And I'm like, no, we actually get people who would say they have a pretty good sex life to begin with. And then they learn that there's so much more to know that they didn't know. And I love you said that you felt like on a scale of 1 to 10, you were already a 9. And now you're a 1,000. So tell us about this evolution. What does it mean to be a 1,000? And then what was the journey to get there?
What it means to be a 1,000 to me is to have complete confidence that not only can I have all of these different types of orgasms, which I've had with my partner, but also I can really be responsible for pleasuring myself. And I know that you've said some of your most well-fucked periods had been when you were alone. And for me, that gave me an enormous amount of confidence, truly, in seeing that I got to know myself on a different level. I got to really connect to my personal power on a different level. And I joke with a friend who also did that salon with me that I felt like I came in sort of backwards. I came in as a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10, meaning I could have a lot of these orgasms already and consistently. And I felt very sexually open and free. I gave birth to my children at home. I really felt like I owned a lot of my feminine power. And at the same time, I was noticing things in my life that felt backwards. I would look at my sexuality and think, well, if this is all working out, why do I still feel stuck in my business and my revenue? And why is my marriage kind of messy and not making progress and healing that I know is needed here? And why do I feel stifled in these areas of life, which I know are really important to me? How can the sex be working out, but these other areas of life not be working out? And so for me, that was a big question I had in my mind. And I think that's ultimately what brought me to the salon, because I followed your work for years. I've listened to your podcast for years. And for a long time, I thought, well, I don't belong there because I can have these G-spot orgasms, no problem. So it must not be for me. But as I listened more and I kept hearing you talk about your vaginal power means more success in your cash flow, in your life, in your relationship. I kept hearing you talk about conscious monogamy as being the thing that really elevates your partnership, and your partnership being the thing that elevates your life. And I would look at that and think, well, those dots aren't connecting for me. So I'm going to go in here and see if there's any work for me to do that can heal that. And VTF was really where it all finally came together for me. And I want to say that with a lot of emphasis, because I've been a devoted spiritual practitioner for 20 plus years. I've doubled down on personal growth and coaching. One of my children has autism, so I tripled down on healing after that. And, I'm really the leader of healing for my whole family. And I still felt like there's something missing here. And truly, your work and what you teach was the thing that brought it all together, finally.
That's really self-aware. And I appreciate that you had that self-reflection and honesty to look at things and go, okay, if these parts are in line, but these other areas, because what I'm always saying is what shows up in bed shows up in life, and what shows up in life shows up in bed. And yeah, that our sexual energy and connection is such a vital part of who we are. If it really is firing on all cylinders, our life will be firing on all cylinders. So yes, if that link seems to be broken in some way, then the question would be, okay, so why is this not happening? So I love that you were willing to look at that. So what was the process then for you as you entered into the salon to see what areas weren't linking up, and how did you link them up to then see those shifts in your outer life?
Well, it all started with one of what I think is your best podcast episodes. And it's a shorter one. I think it's only 12 minutes and it's the Should I Stay or Should I Go episode. And as I mentioned before, one of my children has autism. His diagnosis was a really traumatic event in my marital life. 12 years ago, I, being a spiritual practitioner, doubled down on my healing. And my husband, who's an amazing man, sort of froze at that time and just wasn't able to, or didn't choose to move forward in his own healing journey. I think he was so shocked. And when I say autism, he's also a non-speaker. So that was a completely different avenue of parenting than you ever anticipate taking in your life. And so there have been many months, many years in which I've said to him, hey, babe, we have such amazing chemistry. Imagine how amazing our connection would be if we were both doing our own healing, if we were both doing our own growth. And he just wasn't ready to cross that line. He would sort of stop and start sometimes, but I always knew it was more to please me than to really help himself. There's a big distinction there. And so for many months and many years, it was almost maddening because we have such deep love, such deep sexual chemistry, and we've always had that. And yet daily life felt toxic. It felt frustrating. And when I listened to that episode, I listened to it over and over again. And I really absorbed that idea of if you're inviting someone to grow with you and they're not taking that invitation, you can withdraw your invitation and just go focus on yourself. And that's really what I decided to do. I thought, okay, I can't control anyone else. I can't control him. I can only control myself. And I'm going to go live my most powerful fucking life. And that's going to be that. And I really got very excited to do that because I think for a long time I had felt like I had to wait for him to go live that life together. And
which makes sense if you're in a partnership, right? Like that's the whole point, is that you want to be taking steps together and progressing at the same pace. That is the point.
Right. And so I just decided, I hit a point where I thought I'm worthy of living this powerful, beautiful gallop into the sunset life, even if that life is by myself, which wasn't what I wanted, but I was in a place of acceptance around that might be it. And now I'm just going to stop being afraid and I'm going to go do that thing. And that's how I ended up signing up. I think I signed up in the last couple of hours of enrollment. So I was like, all right, I'm doing this now. I'm ready. And immediately, as soon as we started getting into the content, I knew it was the right choice for me. I started seeing those dots that hadn't been connecting for years in my life start to connect even in the first week. Even just working on myself with that moment of decision, things had already started to change, which was really powerful.
I love that. And I find that a lot. It's that's good to quote, the moment that you make that decision, all the forces of heaven and earth line up to help support you in your path. And you don't even have to have crossed the finish line. You just need to have started the race, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what were some of those things that were connecting for you? And then how did they shift? So you said that you already had these different kinds of orgasms. Did anything shift with that through going through the salon material?
Yeah. One of the really powerful things that I noticed right away was how the salon encouraged you to really get to know yourself. Like, take the pressure off of giving yourself orgasms and just get to know yourself. And if you have orgasms in the process, great, but don't make it a race to the orgasm finish line. And I think that really stood out to me as being important. I felt like, though I had never had a problem having orgasms, I would always reach for the vibrator or reach for whatever toy was around. And I'd never really taken the time to give myself a yoni massage or do yoni gazing exercises to sort of warm myself up and connect to that energy. It always felt like it's something that was rushed or something that was just, always the same. And it never felt exploratory. So I remember thinking, this is really fascinating. Here I am, someone who's been doing personal growth for a long time. And this feels like the first time I'm really getting to know myself and spend time with myself intimately. And it was the first time I was able to give myself G-spot orgasms without a vibrator, just with my hands. I'd never even tried that before because I'd always just assumed that I couldn't, or it would be, challenging. And that felt like I was unlocking a whole level of energetic connection that I had been missing out on for a really long time by sort of subscribing to the idea of, oh, if you want to masturbate, this is how you do it. You get a vibrator and you just kind of lay there and, you talked about it on your podcast. You have a clitoral orgasm and then you pass out. And it hadn't really been a conscious process to enliven energy until that point. But as soon as it did, I started seeing my confidence start to light up. I started getting business opportunities literally falling into my lap that first week. And they were opportunities that brought me a lot of joy, and it felt fun and playful. And I felt like that was the missing link I'd had in my business. I had been doing things, I'd had success, but I hadn't felt that spark of delight in quite some time. And all of a sudden, all of that started rushing back into my life. And it's been there ever since, which has been just the most joyful thing to really be doing work that you love and is so much fun to do.
Is there anything that you would say about your journey in terms of like yoni reconnaissance exploration? Because we're talking about self-knowledge here, right? And is there any more specific elaboration you could do around your journey of self-discovery in that realm? Like you talked about yoni gazing and yoni massage. Like what was that? How was that an integral piece in your journey of self-discovery?
It was an integral piece for me thinking and realizing that I'm worthy of taking the time and energy, that alone, taking the time and energy to get to know myself on a deeper level was profound, regardless of the outcome. And I think that in our instant gratification culture in the world now, it had become, without me even realizing it, outcome based, like get in there for your self pleasuring and have an orgasm, it felt very results oriented, which it shouldn't. This is an exploratory process. And so by simply taking that time and energy back and saying, I'm going to just gaze at my yoni and get to know myself today. I'm going to give myself a yoni massage and take that time. It sounds so simple, but it felt like an act of worthiness in saying, I don't need to race against the clock to get things done. And I think certainly when you're a parent and you're busy parenting and working and living a very full life, you can start to look at the clock and feel that time pressure sometimes. And for me, these practices were a chance to untangle myself from the time pressure that so many people impose in their lives and say, no, I'm worthy of however much time that it takes to get to know myself, because my connection with myself is going to make everything else in my life better. And they are simpler practices, more straightforward practices than some of the more intricate ones. But that act of reclaiming the time and energy for yourself was very powerful for me. And I was very aware of it. Isn't it interesting that if someone had said, take an hour and go run some errands, I probably would have said, okay. But if someone says, take an hour and yoni gaze, it's like, what? I don't know if I can do that for an hour. And really sinking into that discomfort and saying, well, this is important. And I'm just going to lean into this being different and also important was a powerful exercise for me. And I was really thankful for it because it forced me to see things in myself that had become patterns that I didn't really want anymore. And it gave me a reason to opt out into different ones.
What a beautiful metaphor that the seeing into yourself and getting to know yourself got you more clarity of your truth overall, and then taking these actions out in the world. Beautiful. Yeah, amazing. And you said, so the financial piece really opened up for you with that too.
Yeah. My revenue tripled that first month, and it's been that way ever since. And it's only just starting to even gather momentum. I don't want to say I didn't do anything, because I did, but only now am I starting to get even more intentional around creating more of that, because it was just magnetic. Things just kept finding me. I didn't even have to go looking for them. And it really felt like nudges from the universe saying, see, now that you're really taking the time to connect to you, we're going to meet you and bring all of this energy back to you. But you had to open it up first. And that was a recurring theme that I noticed throughout the whole salon. I had to be the one to say, I'm going to do this now. Make that decision. I'm going to take the time to do these practices. I'm worthy of that time and energy. I'm worthy of doing things that make me feel confident and joyful. And then as I really stood firm in that and claiming that, that's when all the magnetism kept getting stronger and stronger. But I had to be the one to put it there first. It's sort of like that analogy of you can sit home and eat bonbons and hope that, Oprah discovers you, or you can just go out and get into energy and create that yourself. And I felt like all the practices helped to get that energy going.
Right. Yeah. Excellent. So what happened, would you say, in your relationship then? Like, did you get, because in that whole, should I stay or should I go? What I talk about is you issue the invitation to your partner. And if they don't accept it, then you carry on, you withdraw your energy, you carry on your own. Doesn't mean you leave the relationship right away, but you focus on yourself. And then as you focus on yourself, you get clarity based on the growth that you're having of, okay, will this work? Will it not work? And then something that often happens in the interim is that the other partner sees changes and they feel changes in you, and they are intrigued and they start to be like, oh, I kind of would like to come on this journey with you, or not. So what happened in that situation for you?
Well, I noticed that as I felt more powerful and more successful and more confident throughout the salon, I started to feel much more buoyed on my relationship path, because I was really able to see, oh, I'm worthy of a partnership that is a priority from both sides. I don't want to be the only one making it a priority. And I think that there's actually some challenges in the personal growth industry, because people, and I think I fell prey to this for a long time, get so in the habit of trying to fix things. Or you think with yourself, there's always another thing to fix. And I'm a lifelong learner, so I'll always be learning and growing. But I think with the relationship piece, that was almost dangerous, because I kept thinking, well, if this isn't working, there must be something else that I'm not seeing to help him or to help us together. There must be something more that I could do. And through really connecting to my own personal power, I was able to see, you've actually done enough, Sarah, and you can't be responsible for another human's journey. And if they're not willing to be responsible for themselves, you can't drag them over the finish line. And so as I felt more confident, more successful, and more worthy, I continued to kind of not drop hints, but have actual conversations with my husband and say, hey, this is really helping me. Do you want to go further down this path together? Imagine how great our relationship could be if we were both doing this work, not just me. And what was really challenging is that he would always agree. He would always say, yeah, you're right, but he wouldn't take action. And I think he sincerely wanted to. I think he sincerely struggled. And it was really intense for me because now there's a lot of evidence around ADHD being a trauma response. And he was diagnosed with ADHD only recently as an adult. And I think a lot of people in the Western medicine world would tell him, like, this is just how you are. You can't implement things. You have trouble following through. You are going to struggle with these changes. And he bought into that. And so he would use that as a reason to not take action and create change. And so we did this probably for almost the entire salon. I would do my healing work. He would notice the changes in me. He would be like, oh, this stuff is like witchcraft. It really works. And yet he wouldn't help himself. And those patterns that he was bringing to the relationship were still there. And they were still really challenging and not healthy for me. And so before the salon was over, I had said, I have tried everything with you to invite you on this journey with me, to help you heal and help you be happy in yourself. I can't do that for you. That's an inside job. And you're not taking action and your words are not matching up with your choices. So at this point, I know I actually filed for divorce and I let him know that I was going to do it before I did. I don't think he took it seriously. So yeah. And so I actually gave him paperwork and said, we're done now. And there's no anger here. I love you. And I'm worthy of more in my life. I'm not going to be part of these toxic patterns anymore. And I think that was a real shock to him, even though I had talked about it several times prior. It shouldn't have been a shock. I think it was a real shock. And ultimately, it was me saying, I'm okay with or without you. I'm worthy of having a healthy partnership in which both people come to the relationship healed and wanting to communicate and wanting to make it a priority because it's the thing that's going to help them in every other area of your life. That's what I want. That's what I know I'm worthy of now. And I'm totally fine having that with myself for the time being, if that's where it is. And something interesting happened. I backed away. I took space. He started to realize that he didn't want to lose something special that we had together. And I know I've heard you talk about how if you've lost chemistry, you can reignite it, but you can't put chemistry someplace it never was. And we always had really amazing chemistry. And I truly think that was the thing that kept us together as long as it did. And as he was really digesting this big life change that I'd initiated now, he was talking with some relatives of his and they were like, we're realizing that what you have with Sarah is actually really rare. Most people we know don't have chemistry like that. If you can grow together, why wouldn't you? Like, this is worth saving. And he came around and I'm still kind of hanging out in my own energetic area, just focusing on myself. But I'm really thrilled to see that he's feeling worthy of his own healing now. He's doing the work that he's needed to do for a long time. He's not just doing it to please me. He's doing it to help himself. He's taking it seriously. And, I'm sitting here talking about it in the span of a few minutes. It took me months to feel that courageous to do something. And I think it's probably easy to be that powerful and divorce someone who you don't really like or you're kind of done with. But like when it's someone you really love and you wanted to be with and you still want to be with, it felt like the edgiest thing I had ever done in my entire life. I had to really be ready. And I don't think I would have been ready without all the practices in the salon really helping me to connect to who I truly am and the power that I truly have. And I don't think I would be in this place now of feeling happy and unattached to the outcome of whether my husband stays on his healing journey or doesn't. I'm okay regardless. And we'll have a great relationship in whatever capacity it's supposed to be, even if it's co-parents. But I'm excited by the idea that he's doubling down on his own work now because he wants this too. But he never would have gotten there. He never would have taken it seriously if I hadn't been able to go there first. So that's where we're at now.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think some of the points you brought up are really important, which one of them is that when you're done with someone, it's easy to move on and cut the ties. But when you're still in love with someone and yet you know it's the right thing to end it, that is really hard. So kudos to you. And it has to be genuine. Like it can't be a threat, right? Like you have to genuinely have made that cut or severance within you to know that it's time to move on and take that action for that, the impact of that to have weight, you know, and you're not doing it with the hope that they'll come running back to you. If they do, you know, that's like kind of irrelevant at that point because you're making all of these decisions for you and what's best for you. But it is like a very common occurrence, I would say, that people, you know, it's like, what is, you know, people say often the biggest impetus for change and growth is pain, right? And so the threat of losing something, hitting a type of rock bottom often is the thing that will be the catalyst for someone to embark on their journey. And then whether they can salvage what, you know, was the precursor to that happening or not is, you know, to be determined. But often it can be. But like I always tell people, you can't make these actions with that in mind, in the back of your mind. Oh, maybe if I do this, it has to come from a fully authentic, detached place that's focused solely on your own best and highest good.
And I'll also add that I think when you are parents to a child who's different, your journey looks very different from the typical relationship journey. I think there's some statistic out there that says 85% of parents to kids with autism get divorced because they're so overwhelmed. They're so caught up in the stressors that typical parents don't have. And I think, you know, when I said earlier that I don't think he took it seriously that I would ever leave, I don't think it was just to diminish me or my power. I think it's that our parenting journey is full on and requires both of us to be at our best every day. And I think that there was a sincere question of like, oh, I don't think I could actually do this if we were separate. I don't think I could do this without her. And I think there's validity to what he was thinking. And I still had to be the one to say, well, we're going to figure that out if we're going our separate ways, because I'm not going to stay in something unhealthy just because it seems intimidating for you. But I did want to speak to that. And I know you've talked about having sexual connection as part of your parenting strategy. And I think that's really important. And I truly mean it when I say that there were times in our parenting journey where I think if we hadn't had the sexual connection we'd had, we wouldn't even be at this journey of healing now. Truly, I think it's the best thing that you can do for your relationship. But I think when you have a kid who's different, who has higher needs, it can be used as an additional excuse to not do the work, or it can be used for the reason why to do the work, because you need to.
And that goes for everything, right? Like people can use every single life incident as a reason why not to have sex and be intimate. Or the pivot that I'm always aiming to get people to latch onto is that if you do have great sex and a wonderful connection, that's going to give you the extra quantum turbo boost energy and fuel and mental and emotional capacity and physical capacity to handle these greater challenges in your life.
Absolutely.
Great. Was there anything else that you'd like to add here about your journey? Any other breakthrough moments for you anything, you talked about like the getting to know yourself aspect. Is there anything else there that you'd like to share that happened for you in that realm?
Yes. One of my favorite modules in the salon was the one that I thought would have been least powerful for me. I don't know why I thought that, but it was the salon all about your breasts. And I thought, my breasts are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're healthy. What's the big deal? And I was so blown away by the content in there and the breast massage and the real getting to know myself on that level that, again, I just had never spent that time or that energy doing that before. And having had children, I had subscribed to, I guess, what is that commonly held belief that after you breastfeed, and I breastfed both my children exclusively, you look deflated, and you don't have perky breasts anymore. And, you're kind of considered older or, whatever the commonalities that people have around them are. And as I started doing breast massage, I noticed that my anatomy was changing. My breasts were perkier. They were fuller. They didn't look deflated anymore. I'm 43 years old, so it's not, I haven't breastfed for many years. It's been a long time since, I've done anything like that. But that idea of giving yourself that love and that nurturing and that energetic nourishment that maybe you didn't have during those years of your life really hit me really intensely. And I saw a difference right away. And it was mind blowing, again, to think so wild that I've done so much personal growth work already. And I'm at this new frontier and there's so much more for me here. And it was just beautiful. It really made me feel like a queen and powerful and beautiful in ways that I hadn't felt and confident in ways that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had breasts at an early age. It was the topic of discussion, amongst family members at gatherings and amongst friends who hadn't gone through puberty yet, when I was in school. And so I felt self-conscious around that. And this was long before pregnancy and nursing and all of that. And so it felt like a reclamation to reclaim that energy for myself. And it definitely was a breakthrough. And in addition to having breakthroughs with other types of orgasms and having them in the way you talked about, like full body experiences, I think the breast salon really contributed to that because I think it opened up channels that had been dormant in my energy for a long time. And I remember the first week of doing breast massage, my libido was off the charts. And I remember thinking, how funny is it, Sarah, that you thought this was going to be the salon that didn't do that thing for you? And this is a salon that really just blew the lid off of your energy in every way. So I encourage anyone who's considering any of your salons, if there's a salon that pops up and you think, oh, I don't need that, that's probably the one you should go sign up for because it's probably going to hold all those things that you need to unlock. And if you're willing to see it with the beginner's mind, as they say in Buddhism, you'll have a really profound experience.
That's beautiful. I love hearing that. And how about your orgasmic evolution? Like you mentioned using a vibrator with your G-spot. And is that a vibrating toy?
Yeah, it was a vibrating toy. And I had different types of vibrating toys for clitoral orgasms, anal orgasms, G-spot orgasms. And I think I just assumed that that's what you were supposed to do, to bring yourself to orgasm in that way. And when we started the salon and swore off of vibrators, I was really curious to see what would happen. And I was so pleasantly surprised that, one, you don't have to sacrifice quantity of orgasms if you don't want to. You can have as many as you want, which I was always able to do, but the quality was so much richer and more profound. And that's when I started experiencing the less localized clitoral orgasms. I'd had cervical orgasms before. I'd had G-spot orgasms before with and without toys, but they went deeper. They were felt on an energetic level that really permeated my whole body. And I think growing up in America, learning about sexuality here, I had always just been taught that orgasms are localized because that's where your anatomy is. And if you have a toy that stimulates that exact spot, that's the maximum arousal that you're going to get, or that's the only place that energetic shift will happen. And so the first time during the salon when I had a G-spot orgasm that permeated, I swear it traveled through my whole body. My husband felt it too. He was like, what was that? That was something else. I remember thinking, wow, I had heard you talk about this. I had believed it was possible. I had no idea. I still can't really articulate it very well what it felt like, but it's mind-boggling when you have those divine moments in your physical body after years of being told this is just your physical body, this is as far as it can go. And it was such an amazing reminder that those things are only true if you subscribe to them. And if you don't want to, you could just subscribe to something else and watch that come to fruition. And it was really powerful. And it kind of unlocked the whole world of believing. It reminded me of the very first time I was in a yoga class, I did a headstand. And I had been thinking, this is impossible for me. I'll never be able to do this. That's just for the advanced people. And then I just kept practicing and kept, trying it out, never expecting it to change. And then one day I did it and I thought, oh, wow, if that impossible thing is possible now, what else? And that's very much what this G-spot orgasm felt like for me. It started making me feel like, well, what else is possible? And then that spilled over into the relationship piece because I was like, come on, honey, we have amazing sex now. Imagine what's possible if we both do the work here. I mean, this could be better than we ever imagined. And something really interesting started happening. And around the same time as the G-spot orgasm breakthrough and the breast massage and breast salon breakthrough, I'd heard you talk about energetic orgasms in one of the salons. And I thought, that sounds really interesting. And my husband is amazing in bed. He had really good control. He's always been a believer in that and having orgasm without ejaculation. And he's worked on that and been a believer in that. And I'm thankful. And he started having orgasms just laying next to me in bed. Like I would literally go to bed at night and he would cuddle up next to me and he would have an orgasm. And he was like, what is this witchcraft? This is amazing and wild. And as we would talk about it, he's like, well, this is your energy that's different. Something is different here. And you can hear someone talk about energetic orgasms or, doing a deep meditation and visiting someone who's across the world, but you never really know if it's true until you experience something like that. And so experiencing things like that, which are regular occurrences now in my life, were so phenomenal for me because it really does remind me anything is possible, like that headstand. And it's only done if you decide it's done. Your progress is only done if you decide there's nothing more to learn. And so it just makes me want to learn more and master these ancient practices that you teach even more, because it's like, wow, this is just the beginning. There's so much more here for me. And that keeps me really excited to keep doing the practices and stay committed to them.
So what kind of things did you notice obviously you were able to make a really huge decision in your life in terms of your relationship. And you've talked about your business elevating, your finances elevating. What else did you notice about yourself, your energy, your persona, any changes that happened in you then taking all of these shifts within your body and your sexuality out into the world?
I became much more unapologetic about who I am. And I love that I'm able to say that. And I remember the first time I ever heard you talk on a podcast, the first time I was ever on a salon call with you, I thought, wow, she's not only powerful, she's unapologetic in who she is and how she shows up. And I don't know about everyone else who's listening, but I was raised to act like a lady, sit still, look pretty, went to Catholic school, and follow the rules. Don't rock the boat, make an effort to make other people comfortable. And if you have breasts, don't wear anything that shows them off, because that'll make other people uncomfortable. Or if they stare at you, that's your fault. And so I noticed that as the salon went on, I just did not care. I felt really compelled to do what made me feel good. If someone was doing something that didn't feel right for me, I was not afraid to talk to them about it. I was not afraid to have a firm but kind confrontation about it and give them, the truth around what was happening. And these are things that I used to be afraid to do. I used to be afraid of confrontation. I used to be afraid of, well, if you speak your truth, what might happen? How might other people react? And I realized that how other people react is not my business. They can have their reactions and they can be adults and be responsible for their reactions themselves. I just need to act from a place of integrity and confidence. And there were so many times and little moments every day in which I would say, oh, in the past, I would have been too afraid to say this, but I'm going to say it now. And it affected everything from my relationship to my business to advocating for my child, everything. But it was a moment of choice. And in the past, I would have chosen the path that would have ruffled fewer feathers. And instead, I chose the path that felt really right. And that was a marked difference for me.
And, as you're doing that and you're choosing the path that feels really right, what I say to people that happens is that you're not going along with any kind of hesitation or I'm going to make myself do this. You're propelled now by this innate force from within that you are so connected to your own truth and your own voice, and your decisions now become so much more clear and in alignment with that you just make these decisions and choices without real regard or care for the outcome, because all that matters is that you're being loyal to this energy and voice of truth within yourself that you're now so very aware of.
It felt organic. And I think that in the past, if I look prior to your salon, there might have been moments where I wanted to make that choice, but I didn't feel ready or I didn't feel strong enough. And after the salon or during the salon as well, I would say, I am strong enough. I can do this now. And it felt much more freeing to be able to do that from an authentic place and not from a forced place, as you were saying.
Yeah. And did you notice that show up? You say that you teach yoga. Yeah. So did you notice that show up in your teaching in any different ways?
It did. And I've always felt very strongly about teaching authentically and teaching people a strong connection to the ancient practices. I've been to India 10 times for extended periods of study. I take a lot of pride in not watering down spirituality for people, but letting them know you can handle the real thing. And that's what you're going to get from me. And I noticed I started attracting people who really wanted that. And the tire kickers didn't even waste their time with me. They went somewhere else, but I started attracting people who I would call mature practitioners who really wanted to learn from an authentic place. And it's a pleasure to teach them. And I've also attracted people, like we spoke about, the no excuses crowd. Doesn't matter what's going on in their life. And they certainly see what's going on in my life. And they think, oh, well, if she can manage all these things and still do this, so can I. And I started attracting more and more people like that. People who weren't afraid to state that they wanted something more in their life. They wanted something better for themselves and they were ready to go get it now. And that was amazing to see people who didn't want to just settle for the status quo or what everyone else is doing. They wanted to really find what made them happy. And I enjoy that so very much because I believe that's possible for everyone. I believe healing is possible for everyone. I believe that kicking yourself free of all the societal impositions is possible for everyone if you want to do that, if you choose to do that. So it's been really joyful to attract those kind of people into my mix. And, I hadn't led a retreat in a long time. I am leading a retreat to Peru, Sacred Valley in the fall. It's my second time going, and I'm attracting all the right people. All the people who are coming are saying, I'm saying yes to myself this year. I'm saying yes to my next level of things, even when they scare me. I'm like, yeah, you're my people. And they're just finding me. Like, I haven't even made a sales page. They're just finding me. And it's really phenomenal to see the type of person who's coming into the mix as being in a good alignment with me.
I love how you call them the no excuses crowd. They are my favorite.
Totally. For sure.
Because, over the last, whatever it's been, 5 or 10 years, it's been the excuses crowd. It's like, no, you don't have to do that because of this. No, you don't have to try hard or be great or put in effort or do anything to better yourself because you have this excuse. It's so fucking pathetic. It's just so, and it's so lovely, yes, to be able to connect with people who I feel like it's like almost like an older generation thing now. Like I'm Gen X, right? And you're maybe just Gen X. I don't know. Yeah. But like that used to be a way of life, that those goals of high achievement used to be, that's how we lived. That's what America was known for, And I've talked about, like, I call it lube and the demise of the American dream, right? Where it's like, slather on the lube. You don't need to let your body figure that out, or your it's stupid, so let's just put the lube on it for you, right? Like this whole weird, convoluted, very outsource your power thinking that I can't stand, and I don't want anywhere near me, and have not indulged this stupidity over the last number of years at all. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean and appreciate the no excuses crowd. You are all welcome here.
Yeah, I love the no excuses crowd. And I think also when you're talking about Gen X, and I was growing up in the 80s, there was an element of resourcefulness that we had to learn growing up. And that energy of, oh, you're out and mom and dad aren't home to cook you dinner. Well, you're going to figure it out. And I'm not saying that was healthy every single night, but it was there. And, I took that into adulthood. Okay, I want to publish a book for other parents who have kids with autism to heal themselves. And I want it to be a bestseller. And I've never published a book before. And I don't know how to do this. I'm going to figure it out. I want to do a liver flush next week. I'm going to figure it out. And I see that there are two different types of people who I notice in the world. The ones who say, I'm going to figure that out. That sounds cool. I want to do that liver flush with you next week, Sarah. Or, oh, I'll do that someday. And then 3 years later, they're still saying they're going to do it someday, but they haven't been resourceful to figure it out. So the no excuses crowd to me is really resourceful. They figure things out. And yeah, they can hang out with me anytime too. I'm here for it.
Yeah, always welcome. All right. Anything else on this whole unfuckwithability? Because I think that's the territory we're talking about now, right? Is like, as you've gotten really solid in your own truth and energy, all these decisions flow better. You're attracting people who are in alignment, work opportunities that are in alignment, and things just manifest and flow with so much more ease when you're really living in that truth. And I think that we get these big decisions because in the whole concept of feng shui, right? Unresolved stuff, clutter takes up space and impedes our flow. And when we make a decision on something that has been hanging in the ethers that we've known, or we've been putting in extra effort, trying to fix it, trying to make it work before finally, getting to that point of, okay, I'm letting this go. And then we open up so much more flow because we've cleared the space, right? Of these things that have been hanging around in the ethers.
Yeah, I think that is such a powerful testament. The energy of indecision is one of the most gnarly, toxic energies that I think exists because it attracts more indecision to you. Right. So that you get the tire kickers coming around saying, I want to do this maybe someday, but I don't want to commit today. And I think when you put forth the energy of decision, I've seen this in my life recently, things change. And I look back and I think, how many months and years did I tolerate my husband, who was doing the best he knew how at that time, saying, oh yeah, healing sounds like a good idea. I'll get to it someday, or I'll get to it when my business calms down, or when I'm less busy with the kids, whenever that happens, that's a myth.
Never.
But never, you have to choose it. And instead, when I said, I'm choosing more from my life now, that energy of decision impacted him. It impacted both of our businesses have exploded. It impacted our kids. The energy in our home is really happy and clean. It feels clean. That's the word I would use. It feels clean. And I think when your energy is clean and you're exchanging your energy with people in any capacity, friendship, work, whatever, it's easier for you to conduct yourself at a higher frequency in all interactions. And I think that elevates everyone. A high tide raises all ships. So that unfuckwithable energy permeates everything. And, you know, I have teenagers who, of course, your mom's not so cool when you're teenagers, but my daughter is 13 and she started menstruating recently. And I even will say to her, you know, I've watched people try to push societal beliefs on her. Like, oh, you get your period and you're going to be crazy for the next 5 days or whatever people say, you know, these days. And she would always say, Mom, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. And as she'd walked out of the hall, I'm like, don't listen, it's a sacred portal. And I would just like, let her know like all these beliefs that you believe and that I believe. And, you know, I'll leave my jade egg around in my room when she's going in my bathroom. And she's like, Mom, what's that? Asking me questions about it. And I'm just really honest and clear in an age appropriate way with her. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. When you decide you want to do that, I can help you out. No pressure. And I think that clarity, that honesty is something that comes with the territory of being unfuckwithable, that confidence, because I didn't grow up with that. Everything was really hidden. We're Catholic, you know, in my house growing up, and really like, don't talk about that. It's not comfortable for other people, or keep that to yourself. And I think that energy of clarity and honesty that come with that boldness are really important. I think it makes other people more comfortable, not less comfortable, when they have a really clear handle on who you are and they know what to expect from you, rather than this convoluted, people pleasing kind of energy that we're told is actually more comfortable for people, but it's not.
It's a really good point, because I call it the lie of the lie, right? We all know when somebody is lying to us. We might not be able to articulate it. We may not know what they're lying about, but we'll, at the very, very least, we'll feel it as an interference field. We'll feel something is amiss, right? We know that. And in all these books and studies, like Malcolm Gladwell wrote this book called Blink, where it was all about human perception and how we know things before we consciously know them. And that knowing will register in the body in some way, maybe through a physical reaction, but we know all these things. So we know that this is a fact, the whole lie of the lie. And so we think we're getting away with it, right? Oh, they don't know that I did this. They do know. And this is a mountain of shit that's now building up, that's eroding your connection and your relationship and your trust. Even if you think that you got away with it, nobody gets away with anything. There is a very clear energetic karmic slate being kept for everyone, for every word, thought, action, deed that we have, right? That is karmic law. So yeah, I love that. And I love but in reality and practice, how people just, it's like a sigh of relief. Like I would say this, you know, remember I was telling the story about the initial stages of a relationship with a very, how shall we say, living on the outskirts of society type character that I was with. And, you know, we were having these conversations as you do, as you get to know each other. And he would just tell me these things about things that he had done that most people would either never reveal or keep for a long time. Right. And he would just put them out there. And even though a lot of this stuff was a bit shocking, I loved it, because I thought, well, I can trust this person because he's telling me all these things, right? He's putting them out there. I'd rather know than not know, right? And then I get to decide what I can do with that information. But more importantly is that I know where I stand. I know what's happening. The alignment energetically is matching the words, right? Like I'm feeling into the truth of all this. So I love that. And even with your children, I think that's so, so, so important that we're honest and authentic with them, because same way they'll pick up an energy of interference, of hiding, of covertness. And that will be a facade, a mask, an energy that then gets carried over into their experience of sexuality. That's the gift that we're passing on to our children when we try to hide things from them, especially in that realm. And that's not to say that they need to be full on indulged in every element of things, but we've swung the opposite way in our culture where we think we should hide things from children, right? And that's not the case either. They need to get their education from us first and foremost, and their honest impressions from us. So,
yeah. And I want to raise critical thinkers who can listen to their gut or listen to their pussy, whatever parts they have, and really know what feels true for them and not feel true for them. And in your work, I've really vibed with things that I always felt like were lies, like perimenopause and menopause. I'm 43 and I've met people far younger than me complaining about their perimenopausal symptoms. And it just never felt right to me. It just never did. And I couldn't explain why, but I was like, I don't get this. If you're taking really good care of yourself every day, like, wouldn't you age like a fine wine? That's how I'm thinking of this. I take better care of myself now than I did 20 years ago, right? Like, I should feel better now. I don't want to subscribe to this theory of feeling worse. And the idea that in some cultures, menopause isn't even a word because you're just a woman living your life day after day. What's the big deal? And so it was so freeing to learn more about this in your salons of like the lies that we've been told are true. And I think as you become super confident and connected to your personal power and your sexual power and energy, you develop a really good bullshit detector for things that are being told to you that are not truthful. And, my dad growing up as a policeman, and policemen aren't super spiritual typically. And I remember as I was 18 and moving out of the house and stuff, he would say to me, I just want to tell you something. If you're ever at a party and your gut feeling tells you to leave, just leave. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to justify it. Just go. If you ever walk into a store and it doesn't feel right, just get the hell out of there. Like, I've rescued enough women from bad situations who've all said, my gut told me I shouldn't have gone in there, but I anyway, and I ended up in this bad situation. And he said, trust your gut. And he had no spiritual practices behind it. He didn't have any energetics behind it, but he said, just listen to that. And I think the best thing you can do for your children, if you're a parent, or for yourself, is to develop that sense and that power in saying, I'm going to trust myself in this moment, even if the rest of you tell me no, even if you're going to make fun of me for it. I don't care. I don't care if I'm the weirdo here. My intuition comes first. And I think the stronger you get in connecting to your energy and your sexual energy, the more natural this becomes. And then when you go to teach your kids about it, you don't even think about it. It's just a natural thing that they see you do all the time rather than having to sit them down for a big lecture about it. It's just organic.
Amazing. I love all that. And yes, that the sexual energy piece is such, because as it's our life force energy, as we amplify that in our lives, we're more comfortable with it. We own it. We inhabit it. We begin to talk, move, act from the deepest truth of who we really are. And that is its own frequency. That is utterly unfuckwithable. It carries with it its own protection in the world. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I've loved this conversation, and I'm really, I feel like over the years of doing this work, right? Like, it's become so hard for people to extract themselves from situations that they are in for whatever reason, right? Like, you've got a lot of good reasons to stay there, and a lot of people do, and they get trapped by that, right? That, you say the no excuses crowd. Well, you're like a living example of the no excuses crowd. It's like, this is a fabulous excuse. Nobody would fault this excuse. Nobody, ever, never, anywhere. And you're like, yeah, well, it's still an excuse technically. And so I'm continuing on with my path. So I really salute that. And it's amazing work. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your work. It's truly, it was the missing link in my life. And I'm so grateful. It's such a pleasure to make the time for these practices every day. It's not like something else on your to-do list. It's something that you do with reverence, knowing that it helps you and it changes your life. So it's an honor and a privilege. And to anyone listening, if you're wondering if these practices can work for you, I'm simply evidence that it can. That's all. So listen, if you're waiting for a sign, don't wait for a sign of your sign. Let this be your sign.
Give all your fucks to the worthiest cause, you. And your fucks will give back to you the gift of unshakable confidence, strength, and fearlessness. My legendary How to Be a Well-Fucked Woman salon opens in a few weeks. This is my 10-week online program in all things female sexuality, where you learn how to give all the fucks to yourself and your partner with Self-Pleasuring 101, How to Channel Sexual Energy into Creative Genius, Cock Whispering Oral Manual and Sex Position Techniques, Breast and Yoni Massage Routines, How to Surrender and Inhabit Your Feminine Energy to Build a Life of Ease and Pleasure, How to Transform Challenging Menstruation, PMS, and Menopause into Blissful Portals, and step-by-step instructions for the deeper vaginal orgasms, G-spot, cervical, and squirting. And through all of this, you become utterly unfuckwithable. You can check out the free video preview series and take the quiz and find out, are you underfucked? Go to kimanami.com, look for Sexual Savant Salons, and click on How to Be a Well-Fucked Woman.
Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe and also leave a review. And send someone else the gift of a healthy libido and an off-the-charts love life by sharing this episode with them. We'll be back next week, and in the meantime, many happy orgasms.